All right, real quick. There's one thing I don't really get, and I think is a testimony to how the beliefs of the Watchtower, I think a society, or I forget what it's called, but Jehovah's Witnesses. For example, let's look at this. All right, let me see if I can get it on camera. You've got, all right, right back in there. These people come to the gas station, right? You can't really see them. These Jehovah's Witnesses, right up the road, there's a Kingdom Hall. They come to this gas station, and they sit here with their little stand, with their literature and all that, and they sit in their chairs, and they call it evangelism. They don't engage. They don't try to pass out, the tract. They don't take any initiative to really try to engage, and that's what your evangelism is supposed to do. Your evangelism is supposed to go out and do it, not sit there in the chair. And that I'm sure they go days with nobody talking to them, because everybody knows who they are. I live in Paulding County, Georgia. We all know that Jehovah's Witnesses are a cult. Most people do. I'm not sure about my generation. They probably never heard of Jehovah's Witnesses. I don't know. But I've talked to them, several times, because I've had experiences talking to Jehovah's Witnesses. And it's like, they go out and do this. They go out and do what they call evangelism, and they keep up with their hours when they do this. Okay, this is how they keep track of the good works they're doing for the kingdom, because their theology is all about good works more than it is faith, I would say. But it's all about what you're doing and the good works you're doing, because they believe that those good works will get them to heaven. They wouldn't. They most of them won't come outright and say that, but that's what their theology teaches: works over faith. And it's like they go out and they keep up with their hours for how long they sat there and evangelized, and they think that that's actually doing God's work. They think that just being on the clock is doing God's work, and keeping up with these hours is proof of the great work that they've done. I've got 30 hours this week of evangelism. Oh wow. When really they're not doing anything. They're not evangelizing. They're sitting out here talking to each other, chilling on their phones, and just as if they're going to wait for somebody to come up and talk to them. It just doesn't make sense. If you believe evangelism should be to go out, preach the gospel, teaching people to love and obey the Lord, that one, that you would think that's evangelism, but two, that you would keep up with hours as if those hours accumulating are some sort of fruit of your good works. It just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. And when you talk to these people, as an Orthodox Christian, when you go and talk to these people, you need to be able to point out these things that just seem kind of basic, to us who understand theology and understand Jehovah's Witnesses and where they're falling short on their orthodoxy. Rejection of the Trinity, annihilationism, the weird eschatology they have. To point these things out, you have to create organic thought with Jehovah's Witnesses, because it's very much like a brainwashing. I don't want to say that, because that's a very conspiracy theory term, but they're essentially brainwashed. They're taught to have Pokemon ball responses to accusations that are popular, like the Trinity, or hell, or faith and works. We believe in sola fide, faith alone. Well, they're going to reword that. They're going to say, no, it's not faith alone, you got to have works, and they're going to imply that you don't believe in works, and then they're going to have a response that's been prefabricated and pre-thought out, and tested in simulations and all this to give you. And they believe that that's actually the way to do evangelism. But you've got to create organic thought. I'll give you an example real quick. I'm already at 5 minutes on this. when I used to talk to Jehovah's Witnesses, I talked a lot about the Trinity. The Trinity, they are so well trained on the Trinity that you end up getting into Greek and disputes about, Greek terms. And, I could talk to them about Greek terms, but if you really don't know Greek, you really shouldn't engage with that. They don't know Greek, for one. Just so you know, they really don't know Greek. James White has a lot on Jehovah's Witnesses and his engagement with Jehovah's Witnesses. And they're taught to mention Greek words and speak confidently about Greek when they don't know Greek. So I wouldn't suggest going down the Greek path of, the Trinitarian discussion. But what I would say is you can create organic thought with eschatology. And because a lot of what popularized them was their prophecy, their predictions. I don't know exactly, what they say. I've never actually read what they say, but I've listened to different lectures by James White about what they say about their eschatology. Basically, they believe World War II was very significant in their eschatology. They believe that, rebuilding, I want to say the rebuilding of the temple is, their idea of that is very similar to like premillennial dispensationalists. But if you can go to them and talk to them about eschatology, specifically what I do, Matthew 24, and jump around in Matthew about, different things Jesus said about, some of them would not taste death until they saw him coming, the Son of Man returning. If you can show them where Jesus said in Matthew 24, start in chapter 23 and go to Matthew 24 where Jesus talks about, these things will happen. There'll be the destruction of, the abomination of desolation. You'll see wars, rumors of wars, tribulation. The gospel will go out to the ends of the earth, and then the end will come. This generation will not pass until all these things take place. If you go to that, you will create organic thought, because they don't have as many prefabricated responses for that. At least this Kingdom Hall doesn't. And they're pretty much all the same. They get the same literature from up high, and they go through these same classes. It's the same curriculum they all go through. And they're all very works-driven, so they all have a desire and an initiative to go through these classes and learn them, because they believe that that's the fruit of, their, I don't know if they even call it salvation, but the fruit of their faith in Jehovah. And I've seen that, talking with them about Matthew 24, going through, what Jesus said about his coming. It even leads into Revelation, obviously, but it even leads into the part where the Lamb is given what the Greek word is proskuneto, worship. No other being besides God receives proskuneto, worship. And that will create an organic thought in their mind, because they don't believe that the Lamb is God, and they don't believe that anything else should be worshipped. Yet the Lamb is worshipped. And you leave that thought with them, you leave that seed, and you hope that God waters it, and you return, and you talk to the same person. Hey, did you look up this? Did you look up what I said about, proskuneto and the Lamb being worshipped in the book of Revelation? Did you look up where, I was talking about Jesus saying this generation would not pass away? And unfortunately, most of them are not going to do any research. Okay, buddy. Most of them aren't going to do the research, because I don't want to say that I've confirmed this, but they're really not allowed to do that. From listening to James White and his conversations with Jehovah's Witnesses, they're not allowed to read opposing literature. I could be wrong on that, but I'm pretty sure there's a lecture by James White. He went to Hawaii and did this long lecture on Jehovah's Witnesses. Really good. You should look it up. And they're not going to. They're going to close their mind to it. They've already made up their mind. But what you could do is set the example that in order to understand your opponent's position and in order to refute it, you've got to read the opposing perspective literature. Anyways, I'm at 10 minutes, so yeah, let me know what you have found with your encounters with Jehovah's Witnesses. What sort of conversations, what topics have worked for you. I found that the Trinitarian discussion tends to be a dead-end road. You know, you engage at a lot of intellectual roadblocks with them. But yeah.